Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Miss Jenny. I am your astrologer. So today we're doing the horoscopes the old-fashioned way with a piece of paper and a pen. You can thank the company AstroDienst, online as astro.com, for making this service available. I've used them long enough and often enough, and I can't thank them enough that it was time to give them a shout out for what they do. So if you want to do free chart calculations, you'd roll on over to astro.com and set up your own chart there. If you'd like to get reports, pre-generated computer reports, they've got a nice selection of pre-generated reports you can purchase to support their company. Now, mind you, these are computer-generated reports, and they're not sponsoring me to do this, but so you should know, right? They are computer-generated reports. They do have their limitations. It's kind of like music, right? There are dominant notes and lower tones. There's all sorts of this balance of things happening through the music. So it has some limited value. If you'd like to sit down and go over it more specifically and really get this personalized, your reports, you can absolutely contact me and we can set up a chart service and we can go over the charts together, your reports, and make them really fine-tune them and make them very much specific to you. All right, so with that said, let's get on to the chart itself. Now, I was going to do a whole month overview, and then I said, no, I'm not, and then I was, and I'm like, no, I'm not. So I'm just going to kind of do the eclipse because it pretty much dominates the month. So there's your, there's your monthly horoscope. So this month, the eclipse that we are looking at is going to be at 29 Aries, and it will occur on the 20th of the month. Now, at the same time that this is happening, right here, Mars, which has been out of balance for months now, will come back to its normal orbit just a couple days prior on the 18th, and it will be in Cancer. Now, these things are important because Mars rules the eclipse, right? So Mars is the planetary ruler of Aries, which is the sign where the eclipse is happening. So this eclipse will doubly emphasize this Mars. If Mars were still out of bounds, because it's not, it comes out of bounds on the 18th, it would really hyper exaggerate Mars actions and behaviors. And we've had quite enough of that for quite some time now. Mars in Cancer does turn down the volume a bit. So we've gone from Mars in Gemini to recently Mars in Cancer, thank God, right? And what that does, it's taken away all of this noisy, talkative, garrulous, blah, 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 literally talking at both sides of your mouth, Mars and Gemini out of balance energy, and it's muted it. So things are more action-oriented because Cancer is a cardinal sign. Cancer is a very do-it, physical, immediate sign. And when we look at Cancer, we look at things getting done. Now, here's what's important to understand about Cancer. Cancer is not a direct sign. So Cancer is the sign of, well, I hate to say it, but like ninjas. Cancer is the sign that is very much about undermining and underhanded and behind the back and in the ribs, like the whole Othelian cloak and dagger, you didn't see it coming. That's Cancer. See, you thought it was Scorpio. Cancer is much more immediate than Scorpio is, and Cancer is a bit more direct in that way. So the difference between Cancer and Scorpio is that with Scorpio, for example, right? With Scorpio, we get a lot of cloak and dagger stuff, a lot of behind the scenes, under the bed, hiding in the bushes, like gotcha kind of thing. But with Scorpio will wait as long as necessary to exact its revenge, and they will let you know by post, oh no, I was the one who did it. How do you like me now, bitch? Excuse my language. Cancer, on the other hand, is similarly very subtle, right? Very subtle, very behind the scenes, undermining, sabotage, they said. But Cancer will hang on to a hurt or a pain or an injury, that singular thing, for freaking ever, and wring that like you're wringing a dish rag until there's nothing left they can get out of it. So guilt and blackmail, notably, are the hallmarks of Cancer. With Mars in Cancer, we can certainly expect more things that have to do with, well, blackmail. And potentially exposing secrets and guilt, right? moral and emotional obligation being at play until the 18th. Now, after the 18th, when this eclipse comes around, this is going to die down, thank God. But it's still being emphasized. So we're kind of being launched into a different direction at that point. So what can we expect with this eclipse? Well, one of the things, before we get too much further in the chart, we can definitely expect with this eclipse is that 29 Aries eclipse, we can definitely expect some major meta situations coming to an end. So this is literally the end of a great era or chapter in an era. So there's that. Now, the last time, notably for those of you here in the United States who were watching the January 6th insurrection, there's a lot of Aries energy around that, and all through the whole MAGA movement from 2016 to 2020. We were having a lot of Aries eclipses, and I'm quite happy to see them all stop and go. So one of the things that you'll also find with the Aries eclipse, regardless of the degree that it's happening, is a tendency towards more infantile views of the world, right? It's black or white, it's right or it's wrong, it's us versus them. Like, it's all very one or the other simple thinking. When this came up through 2016 through 2020 in the United States, we saw a lot of the racist, the white nationalist, white supremacist, racist people suddenly find their identity and call themselves MAGA people, you know, which is really a code for I'm a racist, I'm a white racist, and I'm better than everybody else, and you should all be slaves to me. I mean, that's basically their philosophy in action. Of course, they're too much cowards to actually admit that that's what they're saying. So, MAGA! Anyway, and now, of course, it's ultra MAGA. But this 29 degrees is the finishing degree for every sign. So this is the last big hurrah of that, you know, the unwashed masses from that particular bunch of people. Now, what this can also mean, because Mars is the ruler, Mars is in Cancer. So this is important for the United States because we've got some Cancer placements that are going to get hit with this. And also, too, again, blackmail and guilt, right? You know, the emotional and moral obligations. So we can expect to see possibly, when this eclipse comes down, we can expect to see possibly some big moving and shaking when it comes to blackmail or things coming out of the closet that should never have come out of the closet or were never intended to. With lots and lots and lots of secrets being spilled. Because, boy, Mars in Cancer does love rooting around in other people's stuff. And Mars in Scorpio. There are a lot of like those two. Okay, now, let's just kind of go through the month and let's see what else is happening as this eclipse is mounting up for action. Now, Pluto will station retrograde on May 1st. Now, we do know that with outer planets, right? With outer planets, we feel them well before they actually station. So the entire month of April, we can absolutely say that this is a Pluto station month. So expect big tectonic plates under the surface of the Earth, and certainly underlying major structures, governments, organizations, companies, people who have lots and lots of power. Expect some major moves and shaking happening all month long. There's a period of adjustment happening, and some retribution and recovery that will be coming after the retrograde is official. So for right now, we're feeling like the whole like plates shifting under the Earth kind of thing. I know I need a manicure. Stop criticizing. Okay, now also too, Venus is out of bounds all month as well, just like Mars has been. Now with Venus out of bounds, this absolutely emphasizes things that are Venusian nature: banking, finance, you know, pleasure, sports, games, romance. So the good things are romance and playfulness, and, you know, getting out there and getting, you know, your love sport on is at a high all month long. Which is good because people are really feeling it and needing something to look forward to. You know, the other side of that, of course, is that it does rule money. So some of the wibble wobble we've been seeing with the banks a couple weeks ago, back in, Jesus, where are we? We're March, sorry. That we were seeing in March, we're not out of the woods yet, and we may not be out of the woods until the end of the month. There is at some point, Venus will cross Uranus, which is definitely going to give us a bit of a scare. But we will survive it. We will survive it. So don't panic and understand that everything's a little extreme and out of control, like a stallion that doesn't want to be broken until the 28th. So buy conservatively, you know, manage your money well. Don't pull all your money out of the bank, but certainly don't take any risky investments right now. And make sure your insurance is paid up. Can't stress that enough. Now, as we go through the month, Saturn will remain between 2 to 5 Aquarius, and Jupiter will be at 19 to 26 Aquarius. So by the time you get to this eclipse, right here on the 20th, Jupiter will be in very close contact with that eclipse, which is also a very good thing. Jupiter with the eclipse will also give us a chance for some 11th hour miracles. So no matter what weirdness goes on with this eclipse, understand that we've got some divine protection that we can access if we focus and get clear and get serious about it. So, remember the parable, right? Fire truck, boat, helicopter. As the floodwaters rise, first a fire truck to warn you that the flood was coming. Then a boat came by when you're on the second floor of the house to ask if you needed a ride out because they're trying to rescue you. And in your stubborn self, climb up to the roof of the house because that's where the water has now risen to, and a helicopter's coming by to get you. And then, of course, when you get to heaven, you're saying to God, well, why didn't you save me? I've been your good servant and faithful, loyal devotee forever, and you let me drown. And God says, I did try to save you. Don't you remember the fire truck, the boat, and the helicopter? That was me. So, my friends, remember, no matter what goes on this month, especially with this nonsense here, God has been giving us multiple opportunities to save ourselves. Doesn't always come in the way you want it to, but you got to recognize it for what it is. Okay. All right. So on April 6th and 7th, things you were to watch, the sun will be around or between Chiron and Jupiter of Aries. Now, this will be a very nice placement for it. This will give some of us very, very lucky breaks, and certainly breaks where we need it the most. So, but it may come uncomfortably so, kind of like the catch-22. You win the lottery, die the next day, or in this particular case, you win the lottery, but you... oh my gosh, I don't know, you fall into a vat of, ice cream and turn into ice cream pop in the process, or I don't know. I'm just being weird this morning. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so the 6th and the 7th are very lucky days, circular calendar for that. The sun will be between Jupiter and Chiron. It will give the potential to break up impasses. So if there are situations in your life that are just not moving forward, watch what happens around these days, the 6th, the 7th, and see what comes out to play, because the things that are happening that day may not be as obvious as you think they are in terms of helping break up the stalemates or impasses in your life. So even things as innocuous as you just happen to go to a grocery store that you haven't been to forever because you just happen to be in the area, you may run into people in your travels that are going to be instrumental in breaking up the stalemates and impasses that you find yourself in your life right now. So watch those days, April 6th to 7th. Now, at the same time, the reason I'm mentioning that it may not come in the way you expected to, remember, fire truck, boat, helicopter. Mercury and Venus will both have moved into Taurus on the 4th, and they will be in mutual reception around the 12th. So they're moving into mutual reception, but at this point, they've both moved into Taurus, doubly emphasizing this Taurus energy. Now remember, Venus is out of bounds all month long, and it's in Taurus. It's moving into Taurus, but it'll still be out of bounds. So we can expect very, very strong emphasis on things that matter and bring substantial assistance in our life. So pay attention. Pay attention. Pay particular attention to things leading up to this, because once we get out of this window, the 4th to 11th, remember the 6th to 7th is your big hotspot days. These are the lucky days. The 4th to the 11th are important days because we're kind of ramping up, right? So we're ramping up, and it's bringing us to the 12th. When we get to the 12th, Mercury and Venus will be in mutual reception. Venus will be in Gemini. In case you don't know, this is what that means. Mercury will be in Taurus, and Venus will be in Gemini. Venus loves being in Taurus. Mercury loves being in Gemini. So basically, it's like those movies where people swap places, right? They change clothes and identities and become the other person for the day. So in essence, they're operating in each other's disguises. So they're actually very able to help each other out of tight jams and awkward situations very, very easily as this is happening. So the 12th to the 1st, we've got a lot of things happening that are going to give us information that we wouldn't have been able to have otherwise, except for unexpected and convenient circumstances, and things are going to enable us to make and find better solutions to get through stuff. So watch those days. But these days from the 4th to 11th, and with a special emphasis on the 6th to the 7th, these are your days to watch. Watch the momentum building and building and building and building and building. So, good stuff. All right. Now, going back to the eclipse. We'll do that in a second. So, Mercury enters Taurus on the 4th, right? And that's a couple days before that lucky day we're seeing here. Venus enters Gemini on the 12th. So Venus will take about a week, 10 days later to get around to that. And that's when we get into the mutual reception. But from here to here, we've got Mercury and Venus both in Taurus. These are very lucky days. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that right about here, so if this is the 12th, this is going to be the 9th to the 11th, right? Right here, Venus will still be in Taurus, but it will be in the late degrees of Taurus. Now, these are very important times to watch, because the reason is, on the one hand, our lucky days are the 6th to the 7th. We're watching all this ramp up until the 11th. But right here, from the 9th to 11th, those last couple of days are going to be super hypersensitive, and you're going to want to be very careful around people, because Venus will be in the last degrees of Taurus. And where does that put us? That puts us in the degrees of Algol, the wicked star that's known for people losing their ever-loving minds, as well as starting to move us into the Pleiades constellation of the degrees of the Weeping Sisters. So this can be a very high tension time from the 10th to the 12th. We'll call it that. This can be a very, very high tension, very volatile time from April 10th to 12th. So we're going to want to be very, very careful. Remember, first rule of the universe is do not panic. So whatever happens during these days, it should be extreme, it should be colorful. And I'm saying extreme because Mars is still out of bounds, Venus is still out of bounds, right? We're under that Pluto station all month long. And now we've got Venus in these last degrees, volatile degrees of Taurus, heading into the stormy degrees of early Gemini, with the Weeping Sisters. So that April 10th to 12th, those couple of days there may be gnarly at best. So take whatever blessings and good things that come your way on these 2 days, the 6th and the 7th, and hang on to them, because we're heading right into, oh my God, really? It doesn't need to be awful. I'm just warning you it's there so you don't get sucked into other people's drama. Just saying. All right. Now, by the time we get down to the eclipse here, which is going to be April 20th, okay, the sun will immediately shift over to 0 Taurus, okay, which is almost the same thing. Mercury will have stationed retrograde and it will be conjuncting Uranus. So Mercury stations retrograde. Right here, all of this. During this eclipse time, now remember, an eclipse window is 10 days before and 3 days after. So these are really sensitive times that are apparently very prone to cosmic wobbling, which means that anything that's happening during these times, the 10 days before the eclipse and the 3 days after, which is going to be 410 to 423, anything that's happening during these days, right? And remember, we've got this Venus in those last degrees of Taurus, those volatile, stormy degrees. Anything happening during this time around this eclipse is going to give us some pause for thought. Things that start on these times are not necessarily going to last or stay in the shape that they originally came in. So be aware of that. Okay. And while that's happening, right, 10th to the 23rd, look at this. On the 20th, the eclipse happens right smack in here, because that's our window. The sun changes signs immediately after it's to 0 Taurus. Mercury stations retrograde at 15 Taurus, conjuncting Uranus in this unstable window. So, listen, I'm going to tell you now, if you've got major risky investments, before then would be a great time to maybe move them to someplace secure. If you have secure assets that you're feeling like, would never, ever, ever be touched, you might want to spread them out. Listen, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about stocks and investments, but I'm just saying, with Mercury stationing retrograde in Taurus, conjuncting that Uranus, Venus being out of bounds, and also, we've got all of this, right? These painful weeping degrees and the last degrees of Taurus, people losing their minds. Things are nothing is going to be as secure as we think it is. So plan ahead accordingly. Maybe stock up on some food and dry goods so you have it, just to get you through a couple of weeks, just in case. I'm just saying, the world is not going to come to an end. The world is not going to come to an end. But it will certainly be challenging in terms of things you thought you could count on that may not be so count-onable. And even if that doesn't happen, we're still dealing with people who are not at their most rock-solid mental health. So, I'm just saying, gotta be aware. While that's happening, also around the 20th, Mars will be at 13 Cancer. Now, here's the good news. Because as this eclipse is happening, right, and Mars hits 13 Cancer, Mars will also be sextiling this Mercury station retrograde with Uranus. So Mars is going to help conserve and stop any major out of control insanity that may feel like or look like it's getting ready to start at this time under this eclipse. There is a saving grace. Do not panic. So once we get through that, we're all taking a big breath, we will be moving into less tumultuous waters, because remember, Mercury and Venus are in mutual reception all the way through the end of the month until May 1st, which we need because we're under that Pluto station all month until May 1st. And Venus will be here out of bounds until practically the end of the month. So with Mercury and Venus in mutual reception, what this is going to give us is an opportunity to find ways out, get us information we wouldn't have been able to access otherwise, and certainly opportunities to manage and navigate anything that's going on. Ultimately in life, a lot of what we're doing 9 times out of 10 is managing repairs, right? So it's like 1 step forward and 10 steps repairing the nets. So we're going to be okay. It's going to be quite the entertaining month. What I would say, just as a general thing, with this particular eclipse in Aries and this major planetary station and these out-of-bounds planets, blah, 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 blah. I know, it's so much noise and verbiage, right? What I would say is that this is going to be the last big hurrah for some folks. They're going to make their last big cheerleading, rush to the finish line. They're not going to make it. But, it needs to happen. You have to have closure on things, right? So for some major forces that we associate with Aries, which has a lot to do with military action and fascism and bullies and domineering behavior and mostly infantile thinking. Things are absolutely right and absolutely wrong, and that's it. There is no in between. There are no shades of gray. Like, the lack of sophistication in thinking is what we get with Aries. It's a very innocent, childlike sign, which means they think like children. All of this, finally, thank God, this whole eclipse cycle involving Aries and Libra is coming to a close this month. So we can expect some pushback, but we can also expect, because these mutual receptions and the other good things that are happening, we can also expect to find our salvation through this mess. So hang in there, baby. It's going to be okay. When we get past the 20th, Mars will no longer be out of bounds, still be in Cancer, but no longer out of bounds, which will turn down the volume on a lot of this noise and, violently shaking the trees for attention and all this sort of stuff. It unfortunately is a more passive-aggressive way of doing things, but it's not nearly as aggressive in the passive-aggressive equation as it could be. So things will calm the hell down. Pluto is still in Aquarius. Now, as the station is retrograde, it's going to eventually back up into Capricorn a couple months from now to basically do a cleanup crew and go back and clean up whatever it left behind, just for good measure. But we're not there yet. So when Pluto stations retrograde around May 1st, it will be stationing near Saturn in these early degrees of Aquarius as well. Now, what this means for all of us moving forward is that we can expect to, depending on how you run your household budget, we can expect a more lean time. So for people who are very good about managing their money and typically are very pragmatic about how do they spend their money, they're not given to a lot of indulgences and excesses and all that sort of stuff, a lot of pleasure spending or indulgence spending. This is going to be a very comfortable time for them because Saturn and Pluto can describe austerity, but also more than anything else, it absolutely describes being very committed and focused and lean with how you manage your resources. And remember, your resources are not just your money, your resources are also your time, your food, your energy, your relationships, your attention. Your resources are everything that you have to work with in life to make life happen and work in directions you want it to. Saturn and Pluto is very much going to come in and require, if you want to get through this comfortably and come out better for it, require that you make major revisions and edits, right? Get rid of the fat for you writers out there. And also reconsider your future plans and how you can more ingeniously apply your resources to better improve your life. So there's a whole lot of fat and waste in our lives that's going to be required to be cut away and new structures put in place in terms of budgeting, time, energy, attention, efforts, so that we can more better streamline these things. By the time Saturn gets back into Capricorn, as in a couple of months, what that should do, if we've done this homework now, as we're heading into May, what that should do is by the time we get into the Saturn in Capricorn, because Saturn loves being in Capricorn, it's the golden rule, it will give us an opportunity to get a report card for how well we're doing and the trajectory that we're moving on. If you don't get a good score on your tests when Saturn goes back into Capricorn, it just means you need to go back and try again. It's giving you a second chance here to clean it up, go back, check your answers. Is this really the answer you want on this test? I'm going to give you a second chance to make a different choice, and then we'll get back to it. So this is actually a good thing. So don't panic when you see the Saturn and Pluto together. Austerity measures, yes, but it's cutting away the fat and the waste. So really it's all about perspective. Depending on how you look at it, this can be a very exciting time to really streamline and improve and make more efficient everything that you're working with to make your life laser focused, dynamic, like pew, moving like faster than speed of light, because it's not held back with a lot of baggage and drag, right? Or this can be a really uncomfortable time because you're like, I gotta give up this and I gotta give up that. It's just not fair and I don't have enough and oh my God, I hate my life. And listen, I'm not making fun of people who are actually suffering because, the struggle is real, man. The struggle is real. And it doesn't feel good when you've got to give up stuff and you don't have a whole lot to give up in the first place. That's not who I'm joking around about. I'm talking about the ones who are crying poor mouth. And literally, if they would just pull their head out of their hat, or you know what I mean, right? And take a second look at how they're basically frivolously wasting time, energy, attention, and money and work on that, it wouldn't feel like you're giving up anything that's worth keeping, right? Those are the people I'm making fun of. For the rest of you who are in the struggle, like if you're on the struggle bus, and believe me, darling, I'm on the struggle bus with you. If you're on the struggle bus, are you ready for this? This is the most important thing you're going to hear all day. This is not going to feel any different than what you're already feeling like. What this is going to do is give you a clarity and insight and the ability to see things other people can't see because you're always playing it so close to the edge that you're actually going to have an advantage at this time. So for you guys who are on the struggle bus, like legitimately, like you can't afford to give up stuff because you got nothing to give up. Legitimately, like you guys are going to be great if you utilize this energy and use this as the empowering, putting steel in your spine transit that it's going to be, right? Or you can just, stay on the struggle bus. For everybody else, this is going to be a time of adjustment. If you use it well, you can come out really far ahead. If you don't use it well, then I don't know. Then you're going to be kind of on your own. All right, so this is it, my friends. This has been your April eclipse report and the April horoscope all rolled into one. We're going to do the prognostication charts for Donald J. Trump, 45th president, twice impeached, and now soon already indicted and soon to be indicted many times more. charts in the next video. So you can subscribe if you're not already, so you can get notification that those charts are coming up. Like if you liked this video. And we'll get into that there. Also, just so you know, with the chart for 45, we're also, for those of you who could care less about this man, we're also going to be using that as an opportunity to explore how to read solar returns, solar arc directions, progressions, and also rectify charts. We're not getting into the real specifics of it, but we're going to use his charts as an example of how to look at these charts and some highlights as they show up in his chart. So if you're learning astrology or you're learning advanced astrology, this should be a very good review for you. For those of you who've never seen an astrology chart before in life, there's still good things in there. So hang in there and come back for the video. All right, kids, I'll talk to you later. Bye.